Hey nurses, how you guys doing today? I want you to do something for me. Take a breath with me for a second. Whether you're watching this before shift, after a long day, or on one of your rare days off, I'm really glad you're here. As you know, nursing is more than just a job. It's emotional, it's mental, and many of us are taught how to care for everyone else, but never taught how to care for ourselves in the middle of it all. Stress, as you know, has quietly become the background noise of nursing. We normalize exhaustion, we normalize anxiety, we normalize carrying things that were never meant for one person to hold. So today I want to slow things down a bit and just talk about 5 things nurses can realistically do to manage their stress. Not perfectly, not overnight, but intentionally. Um, if you've been feeling overwhelmed, numb, irritable, trust me, I know exactly what that is, or just feeling tired. And it's not just a sleep kind of tired. This video is for you. So, I spoke about this briefly the other day, but one thing you can do is just create a decompression ritual that you perform after your shift. So, one of the biggest stressors for nurses is that we truly never clock out mentally. We may leave the unit, we may leave the facility, but the shift always follows us home. We replay conversations over in our heads. We worry about our patients. We think about what we could have done differently. And before we know it, it's invaded our space outside of the hospital and outside of the facility. This is why decompressing and having a ritual is so important. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to be intentional and it needs to be consistent. It can't be a one-off. This needs to be something that you do consistently for yourself. So, some nurses is sitting in the car, um, in silence for about 5 minutes before driving home. Um, for others, some people may pray, meditate, deep breathing, listening to calming music. It can even be a shower once you get home and you have time to really focus on a nice, calming, relaxing shower that helps to wash stress off of you. Um, Another thing you can do is like change out of your scrubs immediately. Don't do anything else before you do that. It's whatever it is you do, it's something that you're consistent with. The ritual tells your nervous system that work is over, you're no longer there, that you're safe, and whatever it was you were dealing with earlier, you can release that now. I'm sorry, the camera's jumping all over the place. Don't know what that's about. I think it's because my hands are moving. As you can see, I talk with my hands. But without taking that pause or performing that ritual for yourself, stress, it just stacks up. And shift after shift, week after week, we know what happens if it'll go unaddressed. You can't continue to just stack on top of each other or stack it on top of itself without it negatively impacting you. So you've got to be able to let that go. Another thing we can do is set emotional boundaries with patients and with work. I know, easier said than done. And honestly, it's because as nurses, we're just compassionate by nature. It's one of our greatest strengths, but if we're not careful, it becomes our greatest source of stress. So somewhere along the way, we start to believe that because we care deeply, that means that we're supposed to carry everything. And that's just not true. But here really is the truth. You can be a really great nurse without absorbing and taking in every emotion, every trauma, every outcome that you face in a day. Not every patient's story belongs to you. Not every outcome is your fault. Every hard moment does not need to live in your spirit and in you after your shift ends. At the end of the workday, just try a something that you can do to ground yourself. You can take a breath and say, you know what? I did the best I could today with the resources I had. You have to be able to tell yourself that. You have to know within yourself that you gave your all that day. And that in spite of that, no matter what happened, it wasn't any fault of your own. But you have to be able to release that. And if this will allow us to set up those emotional boundaries that are so necessary. And emotional boundaries, they don't make you cold, they don't make you indifferent, they make you sustainable. And isn't that what we need? We need to be sustainable. We can't think about having a nursing career. And nursing is something that we love, absolutely love nursing. You don't want to be burnt out after 3, 5 years and end up being a miserable nurse, miserable to your colleagues, miserable to your patients, miserable to everyone you come along with. No. And the way for us to be able to eliminate that or to move away from that is by setting up these boundaries that we create for ourselves. Another thing you can do is stop feeling guilty for making your basic needs a priority. And honestly, let's talk about something that nurses rarely talk about. We rarely and honestly talk about guilt. We feel guilty for resting. We feel guilty for calling out. We feel guilty for saying no. We feel guilty for choosing ourselves. But the reality of it is sleep, hydrating yourself, nutrition, your rest, those aren't luxuries. They're essential, essential for survival, especially in a profession like ours that demands so much of us. If we're not careful, chronic stress, we see day to day firsthand what happens when chronic stress is not addressed. When it's not addressed, it thrives in our bodies. It thrives in places where we in turn ignore our body's basic needs. I'm sure you all have seen it. We've taken care of nurses who are now patients. And unfortunately, we can be some of the most non compliant patients there are on the unit. But we can't ignore our basic needs. We can't. We have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And if you're constantly exhausted, irritable, emotionally drained, your body could be asking for something that's really simple. It doesn't have to be anything dramatic. Our body can just be asking for more sleep on our days off, drinking more water, staying hydrated, honestly, staying hydrated, and actually taking time to eat something that's going to be good for us, not something that we catch on the fly. So remember that caring for yourself does not mean that you're caring any less for your patients. It means that you're trying to stay well enough to be able to keep going. And you owe yourself that. You owe yourself that. Another point, something else that's really important is taking the time to talk to people, other people who understand nursing. It could be a fellow nurse that works your shift. It could be someone else who's outside of your hospital, but One of the hardest parts of nursing stress is that we feel misunderstood and we feel unseen. When you've been used to, and I'm sure you understand this, when you've been used to running codes and having patients who come in with traumatic injuries and understanding how touch and go it is for many of them, and understanding that everyone won't be saved, you kind of build up this callus so that you aren't emotionally impacted as much each time it happens. And to an outsider or someone who's not in healthcare or not a nurse, it can make you look really callous and cold. The people don't understand that this is what you see, this is what you do day in, day out. And it's as much of a survival tactic for ourselves as anything else. I'm sure you end up being that person that when something happens, people look to you. They look to you during a crisis. And I'm talking outside of work, be it family, be it friends, you're that go-to person. Something happens, they're calling you. They're asking you, well, what do you think we should do? Well, what's going to happen next? So even when you're not at work, it's almost like you're always at work because you're always serving as a resource for someone. So we have to be able to have these boundaries and we have to be able to speak to people who really understand what we see day to day. Like you can try to explain your day to people outside of healthcare, but unless they've actually lived it, they just may not fully get it. So I understand that that itself can feel very lonely and isolating. So it's important that you have safe people. Find your village, find your tribe, find your people, because we all need our people. I know sometimes I'll just call some other nurses or call people I know who are in healthcare and just be like, wellness chat, checking in on you. How you doing? They just start laughing because they already know I'm the wellness checker. I'm going to be that person to make sure you're all right. And it's unfortunate because sometimes I find that I'm that person for others. I don't necessarily have a person that does that for me. So it makes even more sense. And I can't stress it enough that you really have to be that person and you really have to do this for yourself. Because if you are also a person who does not have someone that's always checking in on you, you're going to have to be able to balance that out. Find someone, find your tribe. Doesn't have to be a ton of people, but find a few core people that you can really let your hair down and vent to and talk to and share with them the day and let them talk to you and pour back into you. But I will say this, if you do that and you're sharing and you're venting and you're really letting go of these things to that other person, allow them to be able to do the same. It's a lot when it becomes very one-sided. When it becomes a monologue and it isn't a dialogue, you end up dumping all of these stressors on this other person. And now what are they supposed to do with it? They take the time to talk you down off the ledge. And when it's all said and done, you go, oh, thank you so much. You don't know how much I needed that. Well, I know you, I know you've had a long day. I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. And you're like, what about me? What about me? I've had a rough day too. Is it not only fair that they should be allowed to get it out as well? So please don't be the person that's always doing the dumping. Allow people to be able to release themselves. Sometimes they just need a listening ear. Sometimes it isn't even always advice. They just need to be able to get it out. And it's easier for them to get it out with you because they know on some level you understand. Because even if you aren't in that situation today, you've been in a situation like that before and you understand what that means. So make sure you find people who don't judge you for venting, who don't minimize what it is, the load you're carrying. That people, when they ask you, hey, how you doing, friend? And you go, I'm tired. They understand that it really does mean something deeper. So whether it's your coworkers, whether it's nurse friends, whether it's just supportive people who you have in your community, your village, understand that being understood also reduces stress. So you've got to have that for yourself. So you don't always need advice all the time. Sometimes it's just a matter of someone saying, I understand, I get it. I get it. And then like say less. Or they'll be like, you know I know. I know exactly what that's about. And there's just something special about that. You leave feeling lighter. You really do. So make sure you do that. And last point, remember that you are more than a nurse. And honestly, this one might be the most important point of all. Remember that you're a nurse. Nursing is a part of who you are. It's not all of who you are. When your entire identity of being a nurse is your entire role in who you are, stress hits harder. It really does. And burnout hits faster. And guess what? If stress hits you harder, if you burn out faster, guess what? Recovering and bouncing back ends up taking longer. So you deserve parts of your life that have absolutely nothing to do with healthcare. What are these things that bring you joy? Ask yourself, what are things that bring you joy? What are things that bring you peace? Things that remind you that you're a human and that you're not just a caregiver. It's very easy to be pigeonholed in the role of caregiver when you end up being that to so many people, but that's not who you are. That's not all you are. So remember, it could be faith in terms of what you do to reconnect. It could be relying on your faith. It can be doing something creative. It could be hobbies, dancing, singing, laughing, traveling, resting. Whatever it takes for you to be able to reconnect with you. These are the things that should be allowed, and you should understand they are allowed. And you're allowed to exist outside of nursing. So please understand, managing your stress doesn't make you weak. It just means that you're aware. And we all know awareness is very powerful. We've all been in environments when people are just not aware, don't know how to read a room. Awareness is so important. So if this video encouraged you, please, I invite you, please like it, share it, leave a comment. You never know which nurse needs to hear this today. You don't know which nurse needs to hear your encouragement. So be there. And always remember, please, always remember what you do matters, but don't forget you matter too. All right, take care, friends. Until next time.